Hello, my name is Richard Graves, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer and co-founder of Sourcero. And I'm very pleased to be able to present to the MassChallenge FinTech community and to its partners our language intelligence platform and how we're using that to transform millions of critical decisions at our customers with a particular focus on the insurance industry. Sourcero fundamentally enables insurance companies to understand, access, and leverage medical and technical expertise at scale. So what does that mean? We know that many of the most valuable functions at an insurance company are dependent on the expertise of their teams, particularly in areas of expertise that have specialty language, financial, medical for life and health insurers, regulatory, and engineering for property and casualty. What we do is actually provide a language intelligence platform that provides a visual development studio, a cognitive tool chain, and a production-grade platform to help those applications deploy intelligent solutions for conversational and document-driven workflows for often their most valuable functions across the enterprise. We're enabling new capabilities in the insurance and life sciences field, particularly ones that have been often bottlenecked and resistant to digital transformation. Examples of some of the things we've done for insurance and life sciences is helping across the operating model of insurance, enabling smart product knowledge bases to help agents and brokers sell policies and differentiate with competitors, providing new capabilities to do medical text analysis for life insurance underwriting, or helping with health insurers actually do deep document medical investigation to find out where they've been overbilled and to claw that money back to actually protect the premiums of its members. We're working with some leading life and health insurers as well as life sciences companies where we're working in smart diagnostics, clinical ontologies, field intelligence, and monitoring medical and scientific literature with our language intelligence platform. So what we built and what's unique about it is it's the first low-code platform for language intelligence. It allows our enterprises that we work with to rapidly speed up deployment from days to assemble these with blocks rather than months to do custom dev to solve these problems. We've built a cognitive tower that auto-assembles enterprise and domain-specific ontologies with a custom-built solution that both applies ontologies, assembles them, and works with a knowledge fabric to significantly boost AI performance against the content that they're relying on. And it's a turnkey platform as a service that actually can save enterprise data science teams an enormous amount of time on data cleanup and harvesting learnings and deploying it, enabling ultra-fast product builds to meet those needs. This is what the platform looks like. It's a lot, this diagram, we've built a lot of tools. They all snap together to enable functionalities and capabilities. So I won't go too much into it because I'll be showing you a demo of that. Our team is really exciting and great team to work with. Our founder, co-founder and CEO, Dipana Das, spent 10 years in digital transformation with a particular focus on public health and global tech development. Walter Bender, our CTO, co-founded and led the MIT Media Lab as well as One Laptop per Child. Has built an incredible tech team to deliver these solutions to you. And I have a background in data science-driven startups. Amy Gallagher, our Chief Customer Officer, both is a veteran of the Priceline IPO and has built enterprise health and very mission-critical technologies in her career. So what do we actually do? One application that we've been working on right now is actually medical underwriting. What that means is the life and health insurance industry, particularly life insurers, are relying on data that's coming in, doctor's notes, diagnostics, and others, to actually make underwriting decisions. But medical expertise is not their specialty. So what we do is we make medical expertise deployable. We can take in these documents 10 times faster, more reliably than conventional workflows, process complex medical notes and diagnostics in real time, and actually identify in those records tests that people have done, symptoms, demographics, but also disease severity and disease progression. This is absolutely essential to actually getting the actual risks from the life insurance space into something that actually put into a file and speed up that process. We also build clinical ontologies for evidence-based decisions. This is absolutely essential for payers and health insurers. They're actually trying to actually monitor what is standard of care, whether they should be paying for these medical procedures that can be tremendously expensive, but also could be really valuable to a patient, but they need to tell the difference. We make that deployable, ingesting the guidelines, literature, and more, and actually making that into something that they can use to guide their decisions through things like health underwriting decision trees or medical decision trees. So let me actually show you a demo of what some of this looks like. That's a lot of the most fun part here. So with our platform, we configure it for insurance or life sciences. We're able to do custom configurations and utility sets of these tools. When we look at insurance, we've built tools across the ingestion of the types of content and data you rely on, a knowledge fabric that gets assembled once that content goes through our cognitive tower that applies natural language processing, natural language understanding, domain ontologies, and then assembles enterprise lexicons and ontologies, and then enables services and functionalities like document similarity, classification, but all tuned in to your domain and your needs to allow for incredible accuracy that general domain language models and others just cannot provide in a technical domain in financial services or insurance. So what that looks like, this is an example of what we've done with medical guidelines. You can see that we can apply and just change the ontologies to apply this to financial settings. But that allows us to actually ingest documents. This is the COVID guidelines that we did in a partnership with Roche. And it can actually show that we're able to extract all the key elements and information from these documents, bringing in, parsing it, and making it deployable. It also turns into a knowledge graph, extracting all the key information and making it navigable. So you can find symptoms, stages, cases, or demographics that's essential and navigable in real time. And actually display it however you want it, but also compare it with, for example, the new versions. So intelligent version control can allow for updating and looking at regulations, corporate reports, other documents where you want to know not just the words that have changed, but the concepts or the differences and what's in them and what's changed between them. So for example, we can do a progressive comparison to show the details. In this case, it's medical tests or symptoms. In other cases, we can actually dial it in to what you need to look for in a document and can pull up just the passages and areas where this is needed. We also map this to decision trees. These can be used for everything from, we found, for helping brokers and others to actually support how they're walking customers through decisions, or even part of a sales process, to actually underwriting or claims payments. All of this is navigable, and we take real-time literature written in free text and map it to these nodes and keep it updated so that you're actually able to see what you actually need to do to be able to make those critical decisions that have huge financial implications to your business. And lastly, just what's new. One of the things we're using this for is testing the differences in medical literature and guidelines, but actually we're starting to deploy it with our insurance customers to find out, comparing your insurance policies to those of competitors, maybe the regulatory changes that have been needed by states over time, or even if you're actually looking for how a policy that you've sent out has been modified, and if it's actually accurate to kind of the templates and things that you've actually been approved for example, under a reinsurance treaty. So these are things that we have been working with document intelligence. We also make all of this stuff deployable via graphical API. So we could do RESTful API, but this is a fully documented system where you actually can see everything, kind of the documentation is automatically pulled out of the code. We're able to actually pull this in and actually show everything from similarity scoring between document passages across our entire knowledge fabric to actually parsing handbooks across an insurer and making all of that information accessible, even though they started as PDFs, including the tables and tables of coverage that are so essential to deliver to customers. Along with that, we also provided validated information delivery, built smart knowledge bases with this technology, and a whole lot more. So we're really excited about what language intelligence could do for you, and we're happy to give you a deeper demo when that's possible. Thank you so much.
Welcome. My name is Robert Kirk, and I am the founder and CEO of InterGen DATA. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting us to this event and to provide us with the opportunity to present to you today. As we are all aware, COVID-19 has forever changed our lives and how we will do business. It is fair to say that we are living through the largest life event ever to hit mankind. I mean, think about it. No matter who you are, or where you live, or what language you speak, if you just say the word COVID, everyone will know what you're talking about. In fact, I believe that this word will strike fear, frustration, and doubt in most people around the world. However, what typically remains unsaid is what's going to happen to them. A lot of people have lost their jobs, they're struggling to pay bills, and they're unsure of what lies ahead. That's why I'm excited to be able to show you a little bit about what we've built, where we are taking our product next. But before I begin, let me share a little bit of background on the company with you. The name of the company is InterGen DATA, which stands for Intergenerational Data. Now, as you can guess, we're a provider of data. To be more specific, though, we are a leading provider of health, wealth, and life event stage data that includes expenses and analytics in a predictive manner. From a corporate perspective, we're a startup that's a little over 2 years old, and our leadership team has an average of 25 years of being in the business and running the business. Moving on, I want to set the stage for the firm and how we came about, especially some context around our strategic approach. Today, the overarching problem is that Americans don't know if they will be able to retire. They're constantly wondering if they can not only retire, but when. Can they survive a long-term care situation, or if they will have enough money to pass on to their loved ones? Now, there are two main reasons for this, and they both involve life events. The categories are kind of simple. They're health and wealth. Now, when most people think of planning for the future, they only think of the good things in life. Nobody ever plans for the negative things to happen, and this is where it all falls apart. You see, every plan, policy, and goal is based on perfection. Well, we're not perfect. And when life throws you that proverbial curveball, you're going to have to deal with it. But if you haven't planned or even considered negative events like divorce or cancer or death or a critical illness, then you're living on a prayer. That's why I started this company. You see, the person that you see right here, that's my grandfather. And at the age of 92, he got severe Alzheimer's, so we had to put him into a long-term care facility. However, we were not prepared for the nearly $700,000 price tag that came along. Now, as a betting man, I would venture to say that most everyone in America is not ready for that type of expense. Well, what if there was a way to see what's coming? What if there was a way to look ahead in the road and know what's next? Like the navigational apps Waze or Google Maps, I wanted to do just that. I wanted to create a technology that would help people see and know what's likely to happen to them. I also wanted them to be able to uncover and plan for those hidden expenses. Well, we did it. We've created a way to take in large amounts of public and private data, 130 million pieces of data to be exact, and we use that to correlate and predict when people are likely to have an important life event, what it could be from a health or wealth perspective, and how much of a financial impact that it might have on their financial journey. As we go forward, I'm going to take on the role of an agent who is about to show a client how much insurance they will need to consider. Sam, thanks for coming in. As you know, COVID-19 has hit everyone pretty hard. I have some clients who've lost their jobs, some who've taken early retirement, and others like yourself are doing okay. However, I wanted to check up on you and your family because we're seeing a lot of expenses in our clients' portfolios that didn't exist at the beginning of the year. Now, to show you how easy this is, we've already pre-populated some of this data from your records we already have. Let's take a look. As you can see, we're going to take a look at your whole family, right? So this is you that's here. This is the events that are likely to happen to you. This is the information that we need to know and what's going on in your life. And as you can see, it shows you the various pieces of what you've had to pay for throughout the time that you've been with us. But more importantly, you can see here that during the children's college, there's been quite a few expenses and you don't quite have enough disposable income. Well, we've also compiled this along with your wife, Sally. We've taken her information in and we've tried to compile from the AI perspective what events are likely to happen to her. And we also see during this same period of time when your kids are in college that things can get a little tight. In fact, what we show is over the next 6 years that there's going to be not just some college, but there's also going to be some likelihood of some different types of healthcare events, not just for your wife, but also for you. And as we look at this, we need to make sure that you're prepared for these costs because diabetes is something that runs in your family. It's also something we're predicting is more than likely going to happen. But that's anywhere from $8,000 upwards of $10,000 a year. And I don't know if you're set for that, but COVID-19 is something we should really take into consideration. This is stuff that we think about on a daily basis, and we're here to help you. So we want to make sure that you are prepared for what's likely to happen. This data is very powerful, but more importantly, it can be used in multiple ways. Number one, marketing campaigns. Imagine marketing your products and services to your clients and employees in advance in an event and in a completely automated fashion. Number two, beneficiary payout and retention. Today, when you pay out your beneficiaries, studies show that 90 to 95% of the money never comes back. But what if you could show them a better way to prepare for life's unexpected moments? Number three, policy underwriting. Next best offer, next best action. Where our machine learning can help you provide multiple quote options based on empirical evidence of what they're likely going to need. Number four, risk management, where our data will help you better understand what's likely to happen to each member of the household, as well as their total financial impact, thus affecting risk pools and loss ratios of the underwriting team. Now, I know I'm coming up to the end of my time, but we're here to answer any questions or talk to you offline. Please feel free to reach out. Again, my name is Robert Kirk, and this is InterGen Data. Thank you.
Hello world, this is Nick Fusco. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Semantic Evolution. Today we'll be walking through our unstructured data extraction services and utilizing advanced machine learning techniques behind the scenes. Data extraction from unstructured PDFs, long-form docs, and emails can be a huge struggle. Every firm will have a business requirement to get data from paragraphs, headers, statements, and tables, which may vary in format and order across a high volume of documents. These inconsistencies fail on accuracy goals with the rigidity of robotic process automation players or even the most skilled of analysts. Semantic Evolution software solves the challenges around data extraction in these cases, which previously could not be automated, and to nearly 100% accuracy. First up, we're just going to look at an ISDA CSA, a bilateral agreement that could be with any one of our counterparties and so on. We're pretending it's going to be with Bank A in this case, and I am the counterparty. So what we'll walk through is on a non-standardized doc such as this, how how do we work with when it's 15 pages or 20 pages, moving information from, let's say, down here to over here, so then we can translate that into our end model. By virtue of semantic evolution being backed by machine learning, there's very much an iterative process in data tagging at play. That's very important. Now, the aspects that we're going to differentiate on is how data is tagged throughout the use of semantics extract platform. Now, in this case, a model has been built on the left side, and we mentioned we're pulling data from the right. So first and foremost, there's a layer of metadata backing up every bit and piece of this document. Additionally to that, we look at the document ontology, hierarchies, and the taxonomy to identify where things sit in relation to each other on this particular document. When we're going to be building or adding to this model, we would simply add a new field. We'd want to say this field is either a text pattern that we're looking for, or maybe it's a match to list. We have a list that you've come as a client, or maybe it's a based on. Now this based on could be many things. Right? In this case, let's do something simple that we would like to add a header. Now in this case, we'll pretend that we've added a header and this would fall into this left-hand side. As we move through, we're getting to see that everything is split apart by section, and certain areas are actually already added. All of these would be through various different capture approaches, and this we get to understand here. We highlight over, we know that we're looking at the number 15 times New Roman, but there's actually more detail to this. This is actually a date. It is found by regex, and also we know that it's actually not just a date, it's the ISDA effective date. So if we were to look at this, we can come back and actually see how that was found with a based on date capture approach. Now, this is not as unique as actually flowing to later in the document. Now we want to get into the idea of enhanced accuracy. So if I'm going to look at currency, which is one of the more important aspects of a document, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to see that we've got USD. I'm seeing that USD is an eligible currency. And then we have these brackets showing that there could be multiple currencies in play. So if I'm going to come back, I'm going to identify that there's a business rule here. I can also see that something was actually validated. So in this, I'm able to see that there was a calculation done. And we could see, you know what? Is this eligible currency listed as eligible, or is it going to revert back to a base currency? So if it wasn't detected before, then it would have to be referenced back to base currency. Base currency is actually USD. It was actually referenced prior, so it's listed as null. So it's very important to have these sanity checks when you're going into a document, assuring that maybe there's only one base currency or multiple. Going further down, let's look at this particular section, and let's use a different capture approach to say that we wanted to add to the model. Right now, we already know that there are multiple aspects of this sentence that we want to pick up. They've already been added as metadata. But if I were to re-add this as a clause, I can actually see that I have my collateral type, I have a specific rating that's being referenced, and different numerics that I may want to pick out. Importantly, I can also stem this sentence. So I could see many different iterations of this sentence said in slightly different ways, such as remained, remaining, remains, and this would still be picked up. So we'll close that out. And this is going to allow us to have full flexibility when we're picking aspects out of this model. Additionally, we could see that this model can be looked at in a different light. Turning off the sectioning, we could still see that, okay, the document is read left to right. There's a fair bit of metadata involved. We understand what these collateral percentages are all about. We know exactly how they're found. But additionally, you know what? This actually is a table. We use advanced neural networks to identify the table boundaries from the top left to the bottom right, how the rows and columns expand, and then the internal expanses in identifying what content we may want to extract. This is a very simple looking table, but this is really our expertise. So we're going to move on to an alternate document to share what some more advanced looking tables would look like, because this is another key differentiator and where the majority of content might be pulled from a document. We are looking at insurance premiums written, premiums earned, claims incurred, etc. So all of this will have a fair bit of information backing it up. And when we're looking at a document that has tables such as this, yes, pulling out clauses, as I just showed, was important. Pulling out headers, as I mentioned, could be done on that front page of the ISDA. But the table is really where the bread and butter is. So this particular document, albeit only 86 pages, actually has 11,000 data points that are having to be extracted. So you could only imagine if that was to be done manually, what a chore it would be. I'm clicking on a specific number. The nice part about that is I'm referencing back to the hierarchy also built into what semantic evolution has found. So the hierarchy herein is not just saying that 10.7, I believe it's million in this case, and we'll apply a multiplier later, 10.7 million is the gross direct business, but that is actually directly tied to the subheader of premiums written. It has to be appropriately tied to the date of 2018, not 2017. That has to only be tied to the medical expenses, not motor vehicle. And it also has to be aligned to non-life insurance. So all of this hierarchy is built into this one number. So that becomes very, very important. So when we're looking, we're identifying that within the tool. This is exactly how it was extracted. The raw content would be here, but we also need to make sure that we're translating that value. So when we come down, and let's say I find that same number, we know that that number has to be translated to this end value. And that's because of the multiplier that would be associated with this table. Also important to note, when we're coming back to this table, I'll enlarge it, is this table doesn't end here. It actually has extended to the next page. And when I'm coming through, those figures are not in dollar, they're actually in euro, and they're in thousands. So looking at this content, it's very important to note, yes, we've identified the currency, it is associated with our multiplier, and then we also have the multiplier that is the value of 1,000. So you've seen that here. So hopefully this just begins to scratch the surface of what is possible with the raw extraction from semantic evolution. The other aspects that we would definitely want to go into a little bit more deeply would be in this lower left-hand corner. This is all about the business rules and validation process that you can build into any sort of capture method. So going through, we might want to build something that identifies the sum of a given table actually equates to a numeric that's elsewhere within the doc, whether it's within the table or within the summary line of page 1. So the way we've looked at this table, we've trained tens or maybe even hundreds of thousands of tables to identify that we are getting the cell expanses here. So we know first that it is expanded onto this next page. We know that if we see another table that looks very different, more vertical, we can extract that content. Or even we know that if I were to pull up another document in a completely different language, this would still be able to identify the content. Hopefully what we've shared with you today really impresses upon the various capture approaches and business rules that are built into the process. Coming back through the STP aspects of things, we really want to share that the document ingestion is really all about the eventuality of moving to an API or an SFTP upload. Really, this should be acting behind the scenes, uploading your files, pushing them through semantic extract, and being able to just witness what's happening in the manager or the audit interface. That's what we have here. We've ingested our files. We're beginning to see the fields populate by what's actually occurring within the models that we've walked through. And resultantly, you should have the export in SQL, XML, or Excel waiting for you. Thank you very much for your time, and please contact us at contact@semanticevolution.com.
can I have our startups join me here? Let me see, Richard, Nick, Rob. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I want to spend a few minutes with you to dive deeper into your solutions, all very impressive. And we are getting some questions in right now. But yesterday we started with frictionless customer experience, and it ended up with data sources, access to data. And we actually had a lot of questions that probably you might be able to help us answer around unique data sources and unique data sets. So maybe we'll get started from that point on different data sources that you use and how you see that change from when you started to post-COVID or during COVID. Richard, could we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a relatively new company, I think, compared to some of the folks here. We're a little over 2 years old. Mm-hmm. And we just signed up some major partnerships and agreements with folks like ETA and Roche right as COVID started to hit. I think what people are taking away is kind of how it's forcing digital transformation onto folks on a pace that folks weren't prepared for. It meant that we, were moving up deliverables, by months and months, and it really was proving out what we were trying to show, which is that modular technology to do AI pipelines that could be rapidly assembled really can start to solve challenges at the pace that they actually need to happen. So we had, one of our partners is, serves hundreds of thousands of folks across the country. It was in person, and to rapidly change data and enterprise content that's highly technical with the diagrams, all the stuff, tables and diagrams, understanding, and images and video and more, and to turn that into something that could turn into remote performance support was really needed. And the same thing we found is that more than ever, this kind of application, I think, and all of us were demonstrating, is the portability of data from one format into something that's deployable and that can be served in ways remotely is just the absolute demands of all the companies that I think we're all working with and serving today is really speeding that up and making that essential. And it requires really advanced AI to do some of the stuff that was shown today from all three of us.
Yeah, definitely. Rob?
Yeah, so from the data perspective, we bring in quite a bit of data. About 70% of it comes from the government, 30% of it's private. Private resources being like, Zillow, real estate. You can get Black Knight for other types of things, cars, as we predict life events, buying cars, having children and whatnot. But the government data, the good part about the government data is it's vast and there's large amounts. The bad part is nothing is normalized. You may get it in 30 different flavors of a single source type. And the hard part there is to really understand where the data is actually coming from. So many sources like the CDC or the WHO or the FDA or NIH, they pull data from other places and then they'll mash it up together. And so sometimes when they mash it up, they also do additional calculations on it. So you have to always go back to the root. We found that to be the most difficult piece. And the reason I say that is right now, I think the government has a little over, last I counted, and this goes back about 4 months, 567,000 data sets. So it's quite substantial. I consider that I'm decent at what I'm doing to try and find the data, and it may still take me 6 or 8 months to go find exactly what I need. In addition, we also pull in customer or client data. We do not take in PII data. So from that perspective, we're doing it on a census and more of a generic perspective, and we mash that up with ours. That's where we really kind of do our AI learning. So from a data perspective, it's multiple sources, multiple places, and in any type of format.
And Nick, your company is focused on making unstructured data to structured. What are your observations? And where
Sure.
do you
Yeah, so the demand has shifted a little bit. So typically we dealt mostly with a client coming to us with a myriad of financial statements or prospectuses. Some are public, some are private, but we've absolutely seen the demand move from more financial statement matter to lending. And then also a fair, so that was across credit unions, banks, insurers, and consultants. A lot of loan applications and kind of appendages to those. And then also some demand for the municipal bond market, which I don't know if that bodes well or not, but that was more of an aside for us to look at. But well, again, we don't supply the data, so that's what's coming to us. That's what we're seeing as our flow.
Mm-hmm. And there is a question from the audience, Richard for Sorcera, about your APIs, and I would like to add to that. Can we talk about implementation? How easy it is to implement? How cumbersome or not cumbersome it is to work with each of your products? And Richard, we'll start with you and answering the audience question about the AI use neural networks to suggest mapping. So is it done manually or using external vendor APIs? There's a very specific question, but if you could also add the implementation component of it.
Absolutely. So what we are doing is very complex, but we're trying to make the use of it very, very simple. And I think what's really important is we found that API alone is too simple, although we do provide APIs to our customers. That's how it integrates with a lot of their applications and environments. But actually, the low-code approach is incredibly powerful. So we can take very complex functions that may be reliant on and be enriched by a whole lot of other technologies. So for example, I'll just mention intelligent OCR, although I think I get a little nervous when Semantic Evolution's here to talk about it. But when you have we work at the intersection between medical and insurance in a number of spaces. So one example is if you don't interpret a word properly from OCR, you can have a Markov chain that can predict that word. But that word is going to be very different in a medical context than from a general domain language model. So to be able to snap that together and just say, you already have a good open source OCR application, but to be able to backfill that with the domain understanding from your documents in your application, we make that really fast. So you can snap things together in days and start working, have APIs integrated. Now, a lot of our customers, we are sometimes working with PII, and that can require on-prem and other things that can be more complex. But we can get started with pilots and demos of folks with private cloud, public cloud options very, very rapidly, fully containerized and ready to go. With that, what we found is that we have not had a single customer where implementation, even for their claims processes and other stuff that's very sophisticated, has taken more than 30 days. And often that's sitting around, as we know, waiting for enterprises to kind of get data ready. Or getting approval to release data. And then with us, we don't use external APIs for our AI services or other systems. It's our own technology. We do use open source packages within our system, but that's really important because a lot of the terms and conditions of the cloud AI services allow the use of that data by those companies like Amazon or Google and others in ways that, because this is incredibly sensitive, incredibly important to enterprises, they can't use and certainly don't want to use. So we keep it all contained within our technology.
Robert?
So, from a onboarding perspective, there's a couple of different ways to engage with our firm. The first is you can white label a UI that we can present to you. Now, whether it's in Angular, so whether you pop it into a different screen or you just call us via API, those are two basic ways. We charge normally on a subscription basis unless you're private labeling the system. And that's typically on a per customer ID type of basis. Now, what's important to that is what we found is our data, and especially since COVID, we're actually finding deeper conversations about how they want to use it. So if they want to use it into a marketing system, right, they may give us data, we'll turn back, give them a response via API, and that might be the trigger or the alert to go into another system. And that kicks off, like in a Marketo or a Salesforce, a process where they're going to call their own, content management system and then serve that up to their clients. In reference to other pilots, what we're looking at is where we would ingest some of their data completely anonymized. We would send back the response, but we would send it back in terms of the picture. So they would see our cash flow chart, see when those events were going to happen and what that would mean. In either scenario, our onboarding differs because it depends on what the client's really trying to do. Or are they just consuming the data in their own calculation? We never look to replace a risk system. We're not looking to replace, underwriting systems. We're looking as added data points to consider other than what their normal calculations are doing. So each one is different and each customer is different. So I hate to give you a non-answer, but it depends on how mature they are and where they're really trying to implement the data.
Definitely.
Great. And similar to Rob and Richard, it's not a perfect answer, but it really depends on the complexity and how bespoke the model will be for the customer. Yeah. So accuracy is our number one most important aspect of what we need to achieve. So if we're doing a bespoke new document type that we haven't seen before and we really need to build out, it could be up to 2 months. To combat that, when we've begun to see many documents on repetition, we have primed models that are built in-house that might just take 2 weeks. And then for a really light lift, we do have a separate product that is purely built on table extraction. That's literally provided as a login, and you'd be accessing it in a couple minutes. So that clearly would not have the same power and potential as the models that I presented today, but it is an option for rather quick attack to tables.
Wonderful, thank you. And all three of you have talked about when I mentioned COVID and impact of COVID, which is a question we got a lot yesterday, around changing data sets. I want to kind of pose a question to all three of you around the where do you believe with the capabilities that you're bringing in on the data, how do you foresee the insurance business changing from your point of view? Because you're all bringing a very strong capabilities to change the way we're going to be doing insurance. So this time I'm going to actually start from Nick and go to Robert and Richard.
Great, thanks. So one of the insurance possibilities that has come to us a couple times over was just more data will be utilized from any sort of source you could imagine. So the primary fields that you deem important are still the primary fields, but now that it's much easier to extract content really from any sort of documentation, the secondary and tertiary fields would start to be utilized for any of the models that you're building out for insurance premiums and things of that nature. And then additionally, just speed. So if you have the ability to roll through 100,000 documents in a night, that starts to change things quite a bit.
So this is really exciting to me because we're looking at several aspects of COVID today. We started pulling in COVID data as soon as it was available globally, so back in December, and then when the US started to publish their data. We bring it in from Hopkins and the CDC and the WHO, and then from the various states. What we are seeing as a company, we're able to predict 80, and that's 80 critical illnesses today. But COVID is a disease that, think of it as an accelerator. It accelerates your other diseases and it multiplies the effect or the likelihood of you passing away from that disease. We have statistics that show 34% of all the deaths in New York City are Hispanics, 72% of all the deaths in Chicago happen to be Black or the African community, American community. Same as in Hispanics actually happen to be around 52% in California. So we know that COVID strikes minorities at a higher percentage rate per population. We also know that the types of diseases that you have multiplies that effect of the likelihood of you dying, the likelihood of you going into intensive care. We can do this and give you the data based on geolocation, on age, and race, on gender, on job, on social type, on insurance coverage. So we have that data today, and that's updated on a weekly basis. We actually do this in partnership with Brandeis, who we got in touch with over this MassChallenge event, and they've been phenomenal partners with us. So what we're seeing now is the ability to actually use this data and create a new index. So there used to be a thing called the Carlson Comorbidity Index, and we're looking to improve that model. So basically, an insurance company would then say somebody with COVID has a multiplying effect on expenses coming down the road. Now, that's great news today. We're learning about it. We do not have a vaccine. So come November, when we get back into the flu season, that's an inflammatory disease in your lungs. Not only do we expect the same 60,000 people to pass away, we're also looking at 60,000 plus all the people who have COVID today, plus all the different demographics. So we're looking to combine that into actually finding out, how should you be planning? How should you adjust your risk scores? How should you adjust your underwriting? And make sure you're doing it in the right way, right? So that you don't seem like you're doing it in an unfair way, but make sure that you're planning correctly for, risk loss or people. You really want to try and think of it that way. So COVID for us has been an accelerator for our company, and this data we find has been tremendous. So thank you for the question. That's awesome.
So actually, when COVID hit, it was an incredibly busy time for us. We actually raised our bridge to an A at the height of it. But one of our chief medical advisor on our board actually is a former epidemic intelligence officer at the CDC and led global epidemiology and vaccines for GSK. And one of the things we really identified was that for medical professionals and subject matter experts, there actually was a lack of validated information. Just the sheer flood of it meant that the delays in it was huge. So we actually spun up open access domain doctor moderated validated information base, and then worked with our partner Roche to actually take in the validated, the medical guidelines coming from Roche for the rapid iteration, and show we were able to take that intelligent document transmission, medical decision trees, and show that we could keep up with that rapid shifts. They support for the smart diagnostics and other work that they're doing. What we found, and one of the reasons I love insurance, is because fundamentally insurance is about understanding. And what Sorcero is about is deployable understanding. Underwriting is about bridging between every other field of human activity, commercial activity, individual life and health, financial and otherwise, and taking in that and bridging it to the long-term financial planning analysis that is the core expertise of the insurance industry. It's about understanding everything else and turning it into something that can reduce risk. And so what we found is that the digital transformation of taking that basically unstructured text and the overwhelming majority of the data that they rely on, and turning that into something digital is really important, but it's not sufficient. What you need is deployable understanding so that the bottlenecks around the most valuable workflows where experts, medical, financial, engineering, scientific, and others that are absolutely essential to this business, they can extend their capabilities and have technology that works with their understanding across all this newly structured data that companies are unlocking. And that's what we're really focused on.
And that's very good remarks to end the panel with. So I want to thank all of you to our panelists and as well as our audience. And I also want to thank all of you for answering the questions live before I even get to them. So that was wonderful. And I will be turning it over to Devin, but thank you again. And our last session will be tomorrow, focused on customer and employee experience. Devin?
Thank you, Denise, Nick, Rob, and Richard. Excellent demos and engaging discussion. I also want to give a very special thank you to Amica Insurance for sponsoring our Insurtech demo days. So thank you, Amica. If anyone wants to follow up with the entrepreneurs who presented today, you can reach out to our team at fintech@masschallenge.org and we'll connect you. We also have our last demo day tomorrow at noon Eastern Standard Time covering customer experience. So hope to see you there, and thanks again everyone for joining us.